Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about standardizing before optimizing. Now, what does that mean? So, in health and fitness and wellness, what happens a lot of the time is that we, one, either try to find the best thing or we jump too far down the line when we start something. And when we want to standardize our behavior in regards to the outcomes that we want to begin to think about what are we already doing and how can we make it better, number one. And then number two, what do we really want from our behavior? And then how do we align those behaviors towards the outcome? So if we're going to talk about standardizing something and we're going to talk about meals. Now, let's say with nutrition, we want to start a diet. So we Google search our diet, or now we Edge search our diet, and we get a series of responses. And it says, I've lost, 50 pounds in 2 months on keto. I've never had more energy, intermittent fasting. It's all about nutrient timing. And we see all these really cool things, carb cycling, South Beach or Atkins, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter what it is because there's a point where they all work. Obviously, they work. Well, let's say we look at our diet and it's completely broken. We're not getting enough vegetables, our carbohydrates are off, our protein is off, our fats are off. Everything is just off. So we decide we're going to jump into something. We're just going to jump into intermittent fasting. And we read through the diet and then our takeaway is, okay, we don't eat before noon and we stop eating at 8 o'clock. Like, that's our takeaway. So now what we're trying to do is we're trying to eat within this window without looking at all the other parts. Or let's say we jump into keto. Okay, so we're jumping into a keto diet and now we're a very high fat diet. Okay, our carbohydrates are between, say, 20 to 50 grams a day. Our protein is very low as well. And our primary nutrition source for energy then becomes fat. And we start to lose weight. Now, we think that cutting down on carbs is keto. So that's our takeaway. Oh, okay, it's got to be low carb. So we end up eating more protein, more fats, but low carb. And we're not obviously in keto. So what happens is a lot of the times we try to optimize something before standardizing something. So when we think about standardizing something, we could think about simple things like, are we getting enough of each macronutrient on our plate in each meal? Are we getting a healthy serving of protein, carbohydrates, healthy carbohydrates, vegetables and fats, and fruits in every meal, okay? Now, why is that important? Well, the very first thing we might want to look at is, before we try to create something new and go for the best, we probably want to fill in our nutrient deficiencies. We want to make sure that when we're shopping, we're buying foods that serve us and that are supportive, and we get what we need in each meal. If we start there, then modifying the elements, the variables of each of those becomes much easier because we've created the habit of getting everything we need, and now we understand how that serves us in terms of our body, our energy, our recovery, our sleep, and our output. Now, let's take exercise, for example. Let's say we realize we want to lose weight, and where we are here, running is a big one, so we're going to use running. So we go out and we start a Couch to 5K program. And I actually have a Couch to 5K program as a part of our group. We've got about 22,000 people. It's worldwide. It's a great group, okay? Now, the challenge is when people do Couch to 5Ks, they oftentimes don't start with getting assessed, adequate range of motion, adequate landing mechanics, and easing in by walking, structuring the time. They don't start with the fundamentals. They go straight in to, say, interval training, where it's 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or 30 seconds on, 60 seconds off. And they're introducing their body to impact and heart rate and all of these other components where they're pushing themselves, and it becomes grit because they haven't standardized the movement. They haven't learned how to do it correctly. So when we start chunking back up to a general kind of standardizing model before optimizing for, say, a distance or an outcome, we might want to think of, if we're starting from scratch, just setting up a time to do something and planning something we like. Now, if running becomes a part of that, then we start by walking to introduce our body to that movement, learn correct walking mechanics, then running mechanics, and then work towards outcomes. If it's exercise, it could be just structuring that time. Don't worry about if you're doing it right in the beginning. If you're being coached, you'll have a coach for that. But showing up, I can guarantee you, any coach that you meet, especially if you're getting started, is going to be more impressed with your consistency and your ability to remain coachable in the process than anything else. Far beyond how hard you push yourself, any amount of weight you lift, unless that's your goal and you've been training for something like that, I promise you, the consistency, good days, bad days, and all the days in between, and coachability, okay? The refinement of what you're learning is going to impress way more people in terms of coaches, right? If you're doing things like ego lifts and pushing hard and these types of things, yeah, I mean, for the people around you who might be impressed by that, it might be impressing yourself. But when you focus on what's important first and you standardize what you need to do, you're also protecting yourself at the same time and you're conditioning a habit. So if we're learning to exercise, and let's say we're starting from scratch, that could start with something as simple as walking or just meeting a variety of coaches to find a program that can match your goals to the behaviors necessary to get there. You want to standardize things like timing. Find a time that works out, put it in your schedule, create something. Now, what if you can't make the class? Okay, let's say you have to cancel the class. Go for a walk, right? Let's say you just started, you're super sore. Okay, you're incredibly sore. You're a weekend, you're like, oh my gosh, you can't move. Do some recovery work. Go for a walk, get a massage, do some gentle stretching, but do it at the same time because now you're standardizing what you need to do in terms of behavioral operation. That's going to put you light years ahead of everybody else because the results will come with consistency. But if we tried to figure out the absolute best workout, we try to do the hardest thing, the most accelerated results. If you look at everybody who started from scratch and got accelerated results, there's two things I want you to look at. One, if it was diet-based, how long did they keep it? And did they ever put the weight back on? You want people who have done something that stayed a long time, and you want to ask them, not what they're doing, but what did they change in order to maintain it? Secret number one. Number two, you get somebody else who comes in guns blazing for working out, goes out, pay attention to their injuries. How long did they go without being injured, and how many injuries did they have? Find somebody who's created something long-term, has the results you want, injury-free, okay? Now, if you're asking coaches and you're looking for coaches, ask them about the assessments they do. Ask them about how are they going to prepare your body for the outcome that you want so you can have it long-term, not just in the 30, 60, 90, 120 days. What we care about is 31, 61, 91, 121. You want the behaviors to support what it is you want long-term. As you get into the process, you're going to find that it's almost like this whole leapfrog effect. You might start slow in terms of range of motion of the ankles and stability of the knees and mobility of the hips and stability of your midsection and range of motion in your shoulders, core stability, and then this functional dynamic movement as you get started. You might not have a lot of weight. You might be using very little tools, right? But as you progress, you're going to find that because you did the foundational work in the beginning, your results catapult, which can be translated to different outcomes. Same thing with diet. If you start on your diet and you standardize your plate, okay, in other videos we've covered our plates. When we talk about portion distortion, right? We start talking about our proteins, our fats, our carbohydrates, our vegetables and fruits, creating those plates, what's best for your body. Then at that point, you can start to move things around. Let's say you do want to do carb cycling, but you have the foundation of whole supportive nutrition. You can test that. If you wanted to do intermittent fasting, you could test that. Keto, you could test that. There are body types that keto works great for. There are body types that high carb does great for. There are chronotypes where carb loading in the front or in the back of the day do great for. There's balanced body types. There's lots of bodies, lots of timing, lots of neurotypes. These are the things that you want to pay attention to once you have the foundation. Because if we try to fine-tune something without a full understanding of ourselves in that process, chances are it's not going to last very long. So I hope this helps. take a moment, standardize before you optimize. If you have a question about standardization, go ahead and ask it below. I'd be happy to get involved in the conversation with you. Have a wonderful day, and I hope this helps.